Good morning. So it's been kind of crazy. Yesterday, I went to go see The Lion King. Sorry, I'm like tied up with this thing. Let me fix it. I went to see The Lion King. It was a birthday present that I had gotten in December, and there was a special guest, and it was pretty crazy. I'm exhausted, but it was a great birthday present. Hello, hello. Good to see you. I feel like super sleepy. I'm cold. That's why I have my jacket on. I'll probably end up taking it off as I'm reading. Today I'm reading Esther and I believe a little bit of Job. How is everyone doing? Are you guys crooked? I feel like you guys are crooked. Let me see. Or maybe that's just me. I don't know. Okay, so I'm tired. We were up really late and we saw The Lion King on Broadway in LA. If you haven't seen my stories on IG, I have some pictures on there. But there was a special guest last night and we can't post the videos, so I'll have to wait a little bit. And it was pretty cool. They're like, you can't take videos, but if you do take video, please do not post it. Thank you so much. Yeah, it was a great time, and I just love being in LA. I think LA is probably one of my favorite cities. I have a few favorite cities, but LA, oops, I forgot to. I'm like getting text messages. I was texting people too, and I was like, look who I saw. It's going to be exciting. Hopefully, I'll put a little clip of it in here once they like show who the special guest is. Great show. Not exactly what I expected. I didn't really know too much of what The Lion King was. I just know that The Lion King had amazing music. In high school, I was in band, and so I got to be part of the drum corps or the percussion. Like it's called like the pit. It's like the marimbas and the xylophones and all that stuff. That's what I played, and it was like my favorite. You only watched the movie? I actually watched the movie before I went to go watch the Broadway show, just so I knew some of the songs. It was amazing. The talent that they have is incredible. I mean, because they're not only are they singing and dancing, they're using puppets and all sorts of stuff. Thank you. That's such a nice compliment. But yeah, so I'm having a slower start to my morning today, but it was such a great time. We were talking to one of my friends on Wednesday, and they're like, yeah, I was trying to get the show, but it was sold out. And my husband got it for me in December. Yeah, so they're sold out. I've always wanted to see the Lion King show. Sounds really great. Yeah, it's pretty cool. And the Pantages is beautiful. I have a picture of the Pantages on my story on IG as well. So if you want to see that. But it was great. I had a really fun time. And then they had like hot dog vendors, which I love. I think when I just go to LA, I just really like hot dogs because I'm just so used to having them when I get there. I'm just like, that's what we do. You go to LA, you have to have a hot dog, a street dog. I think it's what it's called, but it's so good. A little more pricier than I would have paid, but my husband's like, no, let's do it. And I was like, okay. I said, I would not pay that much for a street dog. Amen, Pedro. I don't know why, but it's so much better. Right? It just tastes amazing. There's something different. Something different. They are tastier. Yes, that's probably the only time I eat hot dogs unless I make them at home. But even then, mine are not as good as those ones. Yeah, I know. There's just something. And so far, because a lot of people are like, well, what if I get sick? I have not gotten sick, but I have a very strong stomach. So um, I am very fortunate in that. But some people do get sick. So it really depends how fresh they are. And they were ready. Like, as soon as everybody walked out, they were just like lined up. And I think it's great. My husband's like, it's part of the experience from hot dogs. I think it's just, I think so. I think they've had it from hot dogs. Just street vendors and because not all of them have license. And some do. But they're amazing. Mine, I got like a serrano. I got the onions and bell peppers and all that stuff. I'm like, now I'm getting hungry. And I left my what is it? My card in my truck. And my husband took it. So I'm like, now my only option is, besides going to his job and picking up my stuff, which I can do that, is just to go to Target and buy. I think Target, do you guys know, does Target take the red card in the Starbucks? Because I really need coffee. I just had coffee, but I'm on instant coffee right now. So I'm like, I ran out of I like coffee brewed. I feel like it's the tastiest. I kind of get tired of the K-cups. Laugh a lot. I just ate lunch. Oh my goodness, that's right. It's lunch for you. I'm like, it's 9 o'clock here. I just got up. Actually, no, I got up early, but I just got started. I love midnight coffee at Dunkin'. Oh, what? So what does that mean? What's midnight coffee mean? Sorry, guys. I know I'm talking, but I'm like, we're not reading yet, but we will. We will read. This is a heavy section, so Esther isn't so much heavy, but Job will be heavy, but it's nice. I like chatting with you guys. It's been a while since I've been able to be on here to chat. Oh, it's strong brew. Okay. Yeah. And then I will try to stay on after just to chat as well. No, you're good. I enjoy the chatting. I'm like, I just want to talk. I like to talk, guys. A lot of people say I'm quiet, but I do like to talk. And I think I'm quiet in new situations and around new people. But after that, like, when I get comfortable, because sometimes you can get comfortable and then something happens and then you kind of just like, I'm going to stay quiet from now on. But when I'm in a comfortable situation, I feel like TikTok has been a comfortable situation for me where I just enjoy meeting you guys. I enjoy talking with you guys and reading and just learning. I feel like I learn from you guys as well. And when you guys challenge me and I have to look through some of the verses, I'm like, oh, okay. So I thought, well, like the other person, your voice is soothing to listen. Thank you. I appreciate that. I actually this is really cool. So, okay, so I don't know how real it is, but this influencer liked my story, and I don't know who she is, but she commented on my Instagram, and she's like, message me. I don't know what that means. She's got like 1 million followers, so it seems legit. She's got one of those blue check marks, which I think that means they're legit. But she's like, I like your contact. Message me. I don't know what that means. I don't know what to do. I've never had an influencer contact me. So if you guys know what to do, let me know. I was kind of like starstruck, even though like I really don't know who this person is. I'm just really encouraged that she message me, I don't know what to do. I don't know if I message her back and to be like, hi. Unless she messaged me, and that's why she says message me, because people can't message me if I'm not following them. Maybe that's why. I'll have to check that message too. But I thought that was interesting. I thought that was pretty interesting. It was I've never had that before. I've had like people say there's somebody else and, message me. But I've never had the actual like influencer message me. So we will see. We will see what will happen. And hopefully I won't be too awkward, because I am an awkward person. I feel like TikTok and Instagram and social media in general has created this safe space for me. But when I'm in person, I get so nervous. You guys would not even know how nervous I get. I literally, even with people I know, the bigger the group, the more nervous I get. And I get really awkward and self-conscious. And I don't know if you guys are like that or if it's just me, because I get completely self-conscious for anything and everyone. And then the thoughts come after. And I was talking about this yesterday, but just about discouragement. But the thoughts come after, where it's like, oh, why did I say that? Why did I do that? Or like, okay, so I have this thing about like handshakes and hugs. I don't know anymore. I don't understand. If someone goes to hug me, okay, I understand it's a hug. But if you don't hug me or shake my hand, I don't know what to do. Like, I just stand there. I'm like, hi. I don't know what to do. Even if it's people that I've hugged before or handshaked before, I don't know what we're doing in this moment at this time, because I feel like people are different at different times. There are times that I hug. There are times that I handshake. There's side hugs. It's just so crazy. But yeah, I am an awkward person, guys. But I'm thankful that you guys are here. Exactly. You can delete a text and modify it before sending it. That is true. Hi, how are you? I'm very awkward, guys. But I'm thankful you guys are still following. And you guys still come. You guys are always here. And I just love it. I love interacting with you guys. I was going to say talking, but it's me talking, you guys texting, I guess you could say. But yeah, it's really funny. I still don't understand the holding hands, handshakes and hugs. There was this meme I saw, I think yesterday or 2 days ago. Awkward or not, you seem really nice. Thank you. I feel like I'm sometimes nice. No, I've gotten better. I think I used to be. Okay, so if I am talking, I feel like I look nicer than when I am not talking, if that makes sense. I feel like I don't have that, like, I'm trying to think of a way to say it without saying what people normally say it. But my face is not, I feel like it's not a smiley face. Like, it doesn't naturally have a smile. I'm a very straight face, focused person. So if I'm walking somewhere, it could look like I'm mad, and I'm not mad. But I always got that in high school. A lot of people were like, why you always look mad? And I'm like, I'm just going to class, guys. Like, I have my thoughts. I'm like, okay, point A to point B. This is what I do. I see nothing else. And it's not that other people are not important. I just know, okay, this is my class. This is my other class. That's where I'm walking. And I tend to do that. I tend to be tunnel vision. That's what I think. Tunnel vision. But yeah, it's funny. But I hope, I don't know. Like, I don't think there's anything I can do to fix my face to not look like, I don't look like I smile all the time. So some people have a naturally like smiley face. I don't have a natural smiley face. Yeah, but just be yourself. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, so I'll start reading since I took up a lot of time talking. But I will stay on after, so if I have enough battery and if I can read all this in time, I will definitely stay after and we can keep chatting. I really love chatting with you guys. So this is Esther, chapter 1. Now it came to pass in the days of Ahasuerus, this was Ahasuerus who reigned over 127 provinces from India to Ethiopia. In those days when King Ahasuerus sat on the throne of his kingdom, which was in Shushan the citadel, that in the 3rd year of his reign he made a feast for all his officials and servants, the powers of Persia and Media, the nobles and the princes of the provinces being before him, when he showed the riches of his glorious kingdom and the splendor of his excellent majesty for many days, 180 days in all. And when these days were completed, the king made a feast lasting 7 days for all the people who were present in Shushan the citadel, from great to small, in the courts of the garden of the king's palace. There were white and blue linen curtains fastened with cords of fine linen and purple on silver rods and marble pillars, and the couches were made of gold and silver, on a mosaic pavement of alabaster, turquoise, and white and black marble. And they served drinks in golden vessel, each vessel being different from the other, with royal wine in abundance, according to the generosity of the king. In accordance with the law, the drinking was not compulsory, for so the king had ordered all the officers of his household that they should do according to each man's pleasure. Queen Vashti also made a feast for the women in the royal palace which belonged to King Ahasuerus. On the 7th day, when the heart of the king was merry with wine, he commanded Mehuman, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, Abagtha, Zethar, and Carcass, 7 eunuchs, who served in the presence of King Ahasuerus, to bring Queen Vashti before the king, wearing her royal crown, in order to show her beauty to the people and the officials, for she was beautiful to behold. But Queen Vashti refused to come to the king's command brought by his eunuchs. Therefore the king was furious, and his anger burned within him. Then the king said to the wise men who understood the times, for this was the king's manner towards all who knew the law and justice, those closest to him being Karshina, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Maris, Marcina, and Mumakan, the 7 princes of Persia and Media, who had access to the king's presence and who ranked highest in the kingdom. What shall we do to Vashti? According to the law, because she did not obey the command of King Ahasuerus brought to her by the eunuchs. And Mumakan answered before the king and the princes, Queen Vashti has not only wronged the king, but also all the princes and all the people who are in the provinces of King Ahasuerus. For the queen's behavior will become known to all women, so that they would despise their husband in their eyes. When they report, King Ahasuerus commanded Queen Vashti to be brought in before him, but she did not come. This very day the noble ladies of Persia and Media will say to all the king's officials that they heard of the behavior of the queen. Thus there will be excessive contempt and wrath. If it pleases the king, let a royal decree go out from him, and let it be recorded in the laws of the Persians and Medes, so that it would not be altered, that Vashti shall come no more before King Ahasuerus, and let the king give her royal position to another who is better than she. When the king's decree, which he will make, is proclaimed throughout all his empire, for it is great, all wives will honor their husbands, both great and small. And the reply pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Memucan. Then he sent letters to all the king's provinces, to each province in his own script, and to every people in their own language, that each man should be master in his own home and speak in the language of his own people. I finished Nehemiah yesterday. Sorry. You didn't come on yesterday. The queen was full of herself. You know what? I did hear something that I heard 2 different things. I heard that she was, prideful and she didn't want to listen to the king. But I also did hear that when he told her to be brought in with her royal crown, that he literally only wanted her to wear her royal crown. And that's why she refused. So I heard those 2 different things. So I'm not sure. It's not completely described in here. Let me see. There might be a little note, but that's what I've heard before. I've heard that he... Yeah, it doesn't say on here, but I've heard a teaching where they did end up saying that. Oh, right. I ended up listening to Nehemiah audio today. I got the wrong book. Oh. Yeah, so that's what I heard. That could be one of the reasons is she didn't want to be paraded around in that way. Chapter 2. After these things, when the wrath of King Ahasuerus subsided, he remembered Vashti, what she had done, and what had been decreed against her. Then the king's servants who attended him said, "Let beautiful young virgins be sought for the king, and let the king's appoint officers in all the provinces of his kingdom, that they may gather all the beautiful young virgins to Shushan the citadel, into the women's quarters, under the custody of Hegai, the king's eunuch, custodian of the women, and let beauty preparations be given to them. Then let the young woman who pleases the king be queen instead of Vashti." This thing pleased the king, and he did so. In Shushan the citadel there was a certain Jew, whose name was Mordecai, the son of Jair, the son of Shimei, the son of Kish, a Benjamite. Kish had been carried away from Jerusalem with the captives who had been captured with Jeconiah, king of Judah, whom Nebuchadnezzar the king of Babylon had carried away. And Mordecai had brought up Hadassah, that is, Esther, his uncle's daughter, for she had neither father nor mother. The young woman was lovely and beautiful. When her father and mother died, Mordecai took her as his own daughter. So it was, when the king's command and decree were heard, and when many young women were gathered at Shushan the citadel under the custody of Hegai, that Esther also was taken to the king's palace into the care of Hegai, the custodian of the women. Now the young woman pleased him, and she obtained his favor, so he readily gave beauty preparations to her, besides her allowance. The 7 choice maidservants were provided for her from the king's palace, and he moved her and her maidservants to the best place in the house of the women. Esther had not revealed that her people or family, for Mordecai had charged her not to reveal it. And every day Mordecai paced in front of the court of the women's quarters to learn of Esther's welfare and what was happening to her. Each young woman's turn came to go into King Ahasuerus after she had completed 12-month preparation, according to the regulations for the women. For thus were the days of their preparations apportioned: 6 months with oil of myrrh, and 6 months with perfumes and preparations for beautifying women. Thus prepared, each young woman went to the king, and she was given whatever she desired to take with her from the women's quarters to the king's palace. In the evening she went, and in the morning she returned to the second house of the women, to the custody of Shashgaz, the king's eunuch, who kept the concubines. She would not go in to the king again unless the king delighted in her and called her by name. Now when the turn came for Esther, the daughter of Abihail, the uncle of Mordecai, who had taken her as his daughter, to go in to the king, she requested nothing but what Hegai, the king's eunuch, the custodian of the women, advised, and Esther obtained favor in the sight of all who saw her. So Esther was taken to King Ahasuerus into his royal palace in the 10th month, which is the month of Tebeth, in the 7th year of his reign. The king loved Esther more than all the other women, and she obtained grace and favor in his sight more than all the virgins. So he set the royal crown upon her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Then the king made a great feast, the feast of Esther, for all his officials and servants, and he proclaimed a holiday in the provinces and gave gifts according to the generosity of a king. When the virgins were gathered together a second time, Mordecai sat within the king's gate. Now Esther had not revealed her family and her people, just as Mordecai had charged her, for Esther obeyed the command of Mordecai, as when she was brought up by him. In those days, when Mordecai sat within the king's gate, two of the king's eunuchs, Bigthan and Teresh, doorkeepers, became furious and sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. So the matter became known to Mordecai, who told Queen Esther, and Esther informed the king in Mordecai's name. And when an inquiry was made into the matter, it was confirmed, and both were hanged on the gallows. And it was written in the book of Chronicles in the presence of the king. I love this story. Have you watched the movie? It's amazing. Oh, I don't know. I may have seen a movie. I recently saw one about Esther, but I'm not sure which one it was. I think it was a much older version, but I know that there's like a new one. Right, what it's called. I don't know if it's called Esther, because I think it has a different name, right? I don't know. I'd love to watch it, though. Chapter 3. After these things, King Ahasuerus promoted Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, and advanced him, and set his seat above all the princes who were with him. And all the king's servants who were with the king's gate bowed and paid homage to Haman, for so the king had commanded concerning him. But Mordecai would not bow or pay homage. Then the king's servants who were within the king's gate said to Mordecai, "Why do you transgress the king's command?" Now it happened, when they spoke to him daily, that he would not listen to them, that they told it to Haman, to see whether Mordecai's words would stand. For Mordecai had told them that he was a Jew. When Haman saw that Mordecai did not bow or pay him homage, Haman was filled with wrath. But he disdained to lay hands on Mordecai alone, for they had told him of the people of Mordecai. Instead, Haman sought to destroy all the Jews who were throughout the whole kingdom of Ahasuerus, the people of Mordecai. In the first month, which is the month of Nisan, in the 12th year of King Ahasuerus, they cast that is, the lot, before Haman, to determine the day and the month, until it fell on the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. Then Haman said to King Ahasuerus, "There is a certain people scattered and dispersed among the people in all the provinces of your kingdom. Their laws are different from all other people's, and they do not keep the king's laws. Therefore it is not fitting for the king to let them remain. If it pleases the king, let a decree be written that they may be destroyed, and I will pay 10,000 talents of silver into the hands of those who do the work, to bring it into the king's treasury." So the king took his signet ring from his hand and gave it to Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of the Jews. And the king said to Haman, "The money and the people are given to you. Do with them as seems good to you." Then the king's scribes were called, and on the 13th day of the first month, and a decree was written to all that Haman commanded, to the king's satraps, to the governors who were over each province, to the officials of all the people, to every province according to its script, and to every people in their language. In the name of King Ahasuerus it was written and sealed with the king's signet ring. And the letters were sent by couriers into all the king's provinces, to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate all Jews, before both young and old, little children and women, in one day, on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to plunder their possessions. A copy of the document was to be issued as law in every province, being published for all people, that they should be ready for that day. The couriers went out, hastened by the king's command, and the decree was proclaimed in Shushan, the citadel. So the king and Haman sat down to drink, but the city of Shushan was perplexed. I watched it on Pureflix, but I believe Esther is on YouTube. Oh, I have Pureflix. I'll look it on there. Chapter 4. When Mordecai learned all that had happened, he tore his clothes and put on sackcloth and ashes, and went out into the midst of the city. He cried out with a loud and bitter cry. He went as far as the front of the king's gate. For no one might enter the king's gate clothed with sackcloth, and in every province where the king's command and decree arrived, there was great mourning among the Jews, with fasting, weeping, and wailing, and many lay in sackcloth and ashes. So Esther's maid and eunuchs came and told her, and the queen was deeply distressed. Then she sent garments to clothe Mordecai and take his sackcloth away from him, but he would not accept them. Then Esther called Hathach, one of the king's eunuchs, who had whom he had appointed to attend her. And she gave him command concerning Mordecai, to learn what and why this was. So Hathach went out to Mordecai in the city square that was in front of the king's gate, and Mordecai told him all that had happened to him, and the sum of money that Haman had promised to pay into the king's treasury to destroy the Jews. He also gave him a copy of the written decree for their destruction, which was given at Shushan, that he might show it to Esther and explain it to her, and that he might command her to go in to the king to make supplication to him and plead before him for her people. So Hathach returned and told Esther the words of Mordecai. Then Esther spoke to Hathach and gave him a command for Mordecai. All the king's servants and the people of the king's province know that any man or woman who goes into the inner court to the king, who has not been called, he has but one law: put all to death, except the one to whom the king holds out his holds out the golden scepter, that he may live. Yet I myself had not been called to go into the king these 30 days. So they told Mordecai Esther's words, and Mordecai told them to answer Esther. Do not think in your heart that you will escape in the king's palace any more than all the other Jews. For if you remain completely silent at this time, relief and deliverance will arise for the Jews from another place, but you and your father's house will perish. Yet who knows whether you have come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Then Esther told them to replied to Mordecai, Go, and gather all Jews who are present in Shushan, and fast for me, neither eat nor drink for 3 days, night or day. My maids and I will fast likewise. And so I will go to the king, which is against the law, and if I perish, I perish. So Mordecai went his way and did according to all that Esther commanded him. Thank you, Oscar, for the follow. So this is, I'm reading out of the book of Esther. Chapter 5. Now it happened on the 3rd day that Esther put on her royal robes and stood in the inner court of the king's palace, across from the king's house, while the king sat on his royal throne in the royal house, facing the entrance of the house. So it was, when the king saw Queen Esther standing in the court, that she found favor in his sight, and the king held out to Esther the golden scepter that was in his hand. Then Esther went near and touched the top of the scepter. And the king said to her, What do you wish, Queen Esther? What is your request? It should be given to you up to half the kingdom. So Esther answered, If it pleases the king, let the king and Haman come today to the banquet that I have prepared for him. Then the king said, Bring Haman quickly, that he may do as Esther had said. So the king and Haman went to the banquet that Esther had prepared. And at the banquet of wine, the king said to Esther, What is your petition? It shall be granted you. What is your request? Up to half the kingdom. It shall be done. Then Esther answered and said, My petition is and request is this: if I have found favor in the sight of the king, and if it pleases the king to grant me petition and my full request, then let the king and Haman come to the banquet which I will prepare for them, and tomorrow I will do as the king had said. So Haman went out that day joyful and with a glad heart. But when Haman saw Mordecai in the king's gate, and he did not stand or tremble before him, he was filled with indignation against Mordecai. Nevertheless, Haman restrained himself and went home. And he sent and called for his friends and his wife Zeresh. Then Haman told them of his great riches, the multitude of his children, everything in which the king had promoted him, and how he had advanced him above the officials and servants of the king. Moreover, Haman said, Besides, Queen Esther invited no one but me to come in with the king to the banquet that she prepared, and tomorrow I am again invited by her along with the king. Yet all this avails me nothing, so long as I see Mordecai the Jew sitting at the king's gate. Then his wife Zeresh and all his friends said to him, Let a gallows be made 50 cubits high, and in the morning suggest to the king that Mordecai be hanged on it. Then go merrily with the king to the banquet. And the thing pleased Haman, so he had the gallows made. Oh, the version I am reading at the New King James Version. God bless you too. Yeah, it's amazing when you're reading it all at once. It feels like Haman, the hangman. I know it's interesting his name was so close, right? Chapter 6. That night the king could not sleep, so one was commanded to bring the book of the records of the chronicles, and they were read before the king. And it was found written that Mordecai had told of Bigthana and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs, the doorkeepers, who had sought to lay hands on King Ahasuerus. Then the king said, "What honor or dignity has been bestowed on Mordecai for this?" And the king's servant who attended him said, "Nothing has been done for him." So the king said, "Who is in the court?" Now Haman had just entered the outer court of the king's palace to suggest that the king hang Mordecai on the gallows that he had prepared for him. The king's servant said to him, "Haman is there standing in the court." And the king said, "Let him come in." So Haman came in, and the king asked him, "What shall be done for the man whom the king desired, whom the king delights to honor?" Sorry. Now Haman thought in his heart, "Whom would the king delight to honor more than me?" And Haman answered the king, "For the man whom the king delights to honor, let a royal robe be brought which the king had worn, and a horse on which the king had ridden, which has a royal crest placed on his head. Then let this robe and horse be delivered to the hand of one of the king's most noble princes, that he may array the man whom the king delights to honor. Then parade him on horseback through the city square, and proclaim before him, 'Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor.'" Then the king said to Haman, "Hurry, take the robe and the horse as you have suggested, and do so for Mordecai the Jew, who sits within the king's gate. Leave nothing undone of all that you have spoken." So Haman took the robe and the horse, arrayed Mordecai, and led him on horseback through the city square, and proclaimed before him, "Thus shall it be done to the man whom the king delights to honor." Afterwards Mordecai went back to the king's gate, but Haman hurried to his house mourning, and with his head covered. When Haman told his wife Zeresh and all his friends everything that had happened to him, his wise men and his wife Zeresh said to him, "If Mordecai, before whom you have begun to fall, is of Jewish descent, you will not prevail against him, but will surely fall before him." While they were still talking with him, the king's eunuch came and hastened to bring Haman to the banquet which Esther had prepared. Good to see you, Mario. Yes, God bless all of you. Chapter 7. So the king and Haman went to dine with Queen Esther, and on the second day at the banquet of wine, the king again said to Esther, "What is your petition, Queen Esther? It shall be granted to you. And what is your request? Up to half the kingdom? It shall be done." Then Queen Esther answered and said, "If I have found favor in your sight, O king, and if it pleases the king, let my life be given me, and at my petition, and my people at my request. For we have been sold, my people and I, to be destroyed, and to be killed, and to be annihilated. Had we been sold as male and female slaves, I would have held my tongue, although the enemy could never compensate for the king's loss." So King Ahasuerus answered and said to Queen Esther, "Who is he, and where is he, who would dare presume in his heart to do such a thing?" And Esther said, "The adversary and enemy is this wicked Haman." So Haman was terrified before the king and queen. Then the king arose in his wrath from the banquet of wine and went into the palace garden. But Haman stood before Queen Esther, pleading for his life, for he saw that evil was determined against him by the king. When the king returned from the palace garden to the place of the banquet of wine, Haman had fallen across the couch where Esther was. Then the king said, "Will he also assault the queen while I am in the house?" As the word left the king's mouth, they covered Haman's face. Now Harbona, one of the eunuchs, said to the king, "Look, the gallows 50 cubits high, which Haman made for Mordecai, who spoke good on the king's behalf, is standing at the house of Haman." Then the king said, "Hang him on it." So they hanged Haman on the gallows he had prepared for Mordecai. Then the king's wrath subsided. I just imagine that. Oh, you read it in Spanish? I imagine it like when he says his face is covered. I just imagine, you know how like you see in the movies where they put like that bag on top of someone's head. Oh, that was just a weird image, but I definitely saw that. I think they said right. They covered his face. Yeah, they covered Haman's face. I just think that. Oh, that's trippy. What a turn of events. Haman got hanged himself. Yeah. Chapter 8. On that day King Ahasuerus gave Queen Esther the house of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, and Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told how he was related to her. So the king took off his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai, and Esther appointed Mordecai over the house of Haman. Now Esther spoke again to the king, fell down at his feet, and implored him with tears to counteract the evil of Haman the Agagite, and the scheme which he had devised against the Jews. And the king held out the golden scepter towards Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king and said, If it pleases the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and this thing seems right to the king, and I am pleasing in his eyes, let it be written to revoke the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, which he wrote to annihilate the Jews who are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that will come to my people? Or how can I endure to see the destruction of my countrymen? Then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther and Mordecai the Jew, Indeed, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and they have hanged him on the gallows because he tried to lay his hands on the Jews. You yourself write a decree concerning the Jews as you please in the king's name, and seal it with the king's signet ring. For whatever is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's signet ring, no one can revoke. So the king's scribes were called at that time in the 3rd month, which is the month of Sivan, on the 23rd day, and it was written, according to all that Mordecai commanded to the Jews, the satraps, the governors, and the princes of the provinces from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces in all, to every province in its own script, to every people in their own language, and to the Jews in their own script and language. And he wrote in the name of King Ahasuerus, sealed it with the king's signet ring, and sent letters by couriers on horseback, riding on royal horses bred with swift steeds. By these letters the king permitted the Jews who were in every city to gather together and protect their lives, to destroy, kill, and annihilate all the forces of any people or province that would assault them, both little children and women, and to plunder their possessions. On one day in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, a copy of the document was to be issued as a decree in every province and published for all people, so that the Jews would be ready on the day to avenge themselves on their enemies. The courier who rode on royal horses went out, hastened and pressed on by the king's command, and the decree was issued in Shushan, the citadel. So Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel of blue and white, with a great crown of gold, and a garment of fine linen and purple. And the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. The Jews had light and gladness, joy and honor, and in every province and city, wherever the king's command and decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a holiday. Then many of the people of the land became Jews, because fear of the Jews fell upon them. Isn't Jesus a So I don't think Jesus is a direct descendant of Esther, because it says that she comes from the tribe of Benjamin. The Esther is a different tribe. Jesus would have been from the line of the tribe of Judah. Chapter 9. Now in the 12th month, that is, the month of Adar, on the 13th day, the time came for the king's command, and his decree to be executed on the day that the enemies of the Jews had hoped to overpower them. The opposite occurred, in that the Jews themselves overpowered those who hated them. The Jews gathered together in their cities throughout all the provinces of King Ahasuerus to lay hands on those who sought their harm, and no one could withstand them, because fear of them fell upon all people. And all the officials of the provinces, the satraps, the governors, and all those doing the king's work, helped the Jews, because the fear of Mordecai fell upon them. For Mordecai was great in the king's palaces, and his fame spread throughout all the provinces. For this man Mordecai became increasingly prominent. Thus the Jews defeated all their enemies with the stroke of the sword, with slaughter and destruction, and did what they pleased with those who hated them. And in Shushan the citadel the Jews killed and destroyed 500 men. Also Parshadatha, Daphon, Aspatha, Portha, Adelia, Aridatha, Parmeshta, Arise, Aride, and Vajasatha, the 10 sons of Haman, and the sons of Hammedatha, the enemy of the Jews, they killed, but they did not lay a hand on the plunder. On that day the number of those who were killed in Shushan the citadel was brought to the king. And the king said to Queen Esther, the Jews have killed and destroyed 500 men in Shushan the citadel, and the 10 sons of Haman, what have they done in the rest of the king's provinces? Now what is your petition? It shall be granted to you. Or what is your further request? It shall be done. Then Esther said, if it pleases the king, let it be granted to the Jews who are in Shushan to do again tomorrow according to today's decree, and let Haman's 10 sons be hanged on the gallows. So the king commanded this to be done. The decree was issued in Shushan, and they hanged Haman's 10 sons. And the Jews who were in Shushan gathered together again on the 14th day of the month of Adar, and killed 300 men at Shushan, but they did not lay a hand on the plunder. The remainder of the Jews in the king's provinces gathered together and protected their lives, had rest from their enemies, and killed 75,000 of their enemies, but they did not lay a hand on the plunder. This was on the 13th day of the month of Adar, and on the 14th of the month they rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. But the Jews were at Shushan assembled together on the 13th day, as well as on the 14th and on the 15th of the month. They rested and made it a day of feasting and gladness. Therefore the Jews in the villages who dwelt in the unwalled towns celebrated the 14th day of the month of Adar with gladness and feasting as a holiday, and for sending presents to one another. And Mordecai wrote these things and sent letters to all the Jews near and far who were in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, to establish among them that they should celebrate yearly the 14th and 15th day of the month of Adar, as the days on which the Jews had rest from their enemies, as the month which was turned from sorrow to joy for them, and from mourning to a holiday, that they should make them days of feasting and joy, of sending presents to one another and gifts to the poor. So the Jews accepted the custom which they had begun, as Mordecai had written to them, because Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, the enemy of all Jews, had plotted against the Jews to annihilate them, and had cast that is, the lot, to consume them and destroy them. But when Esther came before the king, he commanded by letter that this wicked plot which Haman had devised against the Jews should return on his own head, and that he and his sons should be hanged on the gallows. So they called these days Purim, after the name Pur. Therefore, because of all the words of this letter, what they had seen concerning this matter and what had happened to them, the Jews established and imposed it upon themselves and their descendants and all who would join them, that without fail they should celebrate these 2 days every year, according to the written instructions and according to the prescribed time, that these days should be remembered and kept throughout every generation, every family, every province, and every city, that these days of Purim should not fail to be observed among the Jews, and that the memory of them should not perish among their descendants. Then Queen Esther, the daughter of Abihail, with Mordecai the Jew, wrote with full authority to confirm the second letter about Purim. And Mordecai sent letters to all the Jews, to 127 provinces of the king of Ahasuerus, with words of peace and truth, to confirm these days of Purim to their appointed time, as Mordecai the Jew and Queen Esther had prescribed for them, and as they had decreed for themselves and their descendants concerning the matter of their fasting and lamenting. So the decree of Esther confirmed these matters of Purim, and it was written in the book. Chapter 10. And King Ahasuerus imposed tribute on the land and on the islands of the sea. Now all the acts of his power and his might, and the account of the greatness of Mordecai, to which the king advanced him, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Media and Persia? For Mordecai the Jew was second to King Ahasuerus, and was great among the Jews, and well received by the multitude of his brethren, seeking the good of his people, and speaking peace to all his countrymen. Hi, Maya. Oh, right. I feel like I'm getting behind on these readings, but it says I need to read 7 chapters of Job. Oh, it's not too bad. They're like shorter chapters. I was like, 10 chapters in Esther and 7 chapters in Job. That seems like the more chapters than I normally read, but maybe they're just because they're smaller. Per refers to the lot. I think so. I'm like looking. I'm trying to see if there's another. That's how I took it. But it says that is the lot. That's in parentheses when it says per. It says that is the lot. I'm gonna see if there's another. There should be another note about it. Yeah, the Feast of Lots. So the celebration Purim is the Feast of Lots. Because they were like picking a day. They were like picking a day that to pretty much like a lucky day to them. That would be the lucky day that this is when it's going to happen. That's what Haman was going after. At least that's what I've learned and read. But if you want to look up more, it's called the Feast of Purim. I'm sure that they've got a whole lot of stuff about that. Especially when, there's a site. There's a Jewish site. I'm trying to think. No, I'm thinking of I was thinking like the Jerusalem Post, but that's more like a newspaper. They might have some articles about Purim, though. I can't think of any offhand though. But I'm sure if you type it in, they'll have a little bit more information about it. You're welcome. All right, Job chapter 1. There was a man in the land of Uz whose name was Job, and that man was blameless and upright, and one who feared God and shunned evil. And 7 sons and 3 daughters were born to him. Also his possessions were 7,000 sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 yoke of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and a very large household, so that this man was the greatest of all the people of the east. And his sons would go and feast in their houses, each on his appointed day, and would send and invite their 3 sisters to eat and drink with them. So it was, when the days of feasting had run their course, that Job would send and sanctify them, and he would rise early in the morning, and offer burnt offerings according to the number of them all. For Job said, "It may be that my sons have sinned and cursed God in their hearts." Thus Job did regularly. Now there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan also came among them. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" So Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil?" So Satan answered the Lord and says, "Does Job fear God for nothing? Have you not made a hedge around him, around his household, and around all that he has on every side? You have blessed the work of his hands, and his possessions have increased in the land. But now stretch out your hand and touch all that he has, and he will surely curse you to your face." And the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, all that he has is in your power, only do not lay a hand on his person." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord. Now there was a day when his sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house. And a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing, and the donkeys feeding beside them, when the Sabeans raided them and took them away. Indeed, they have killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you." When he was still speaking, another also came and said, "The fire of God fell from heaven and burnt up the sheep and the servants and consumed them, and I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another also came and said, "The Chaldeans formed 3 bands, raided the camels, and took them away, yes, and killed the servants with the edge of the sword, and I alone have escaped to tell you." While he was still speaking, another also came and said, "Your sons and daughters were eating and drinking wine in their oldest brother's house." And suddenly a great wind came from across the wilderness and struck the 4 corners of the house, and it fell on the young people, and they are dead. And I alone have escaped to tell you. Then Job arose, tore his robe, shaved his head, and he fell to the ground and worshipped and said, "Naked I came from my mother's womb, and naked shall I return there. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord." In all that Job did not sin nor charge God with wrong. Chapter 2. Again there was a day when the sons of God came to present themselves before the Lord, and Satan came also among them to present himself before the Lord. And the Lord said to Satan, "From where do you come?" Satan answered the Lord and said, "From going to and fro on the earth, and from walking back and forth on it." Then the Lord said to Satan, "Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him on the earth, a blameless and upright man, one who fears God and shuns evil, and he still holds fast to his integrity, although you incited me against him to destroy him without cause?" So Satan answered the Lord and said, "Skin for skin. Yes, all that a man has he will give for his life. But stretch out your hand now, and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will surely curse you to your face." And the Lord said to Satan, "Behold, he is in your hand, but spare his life." So Satan went out from the presence of the Lord and struck Job with painful boils, from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head. And he took for himself a potsherd with which to scrape himself while he sat in the midst of the ashes. Then his wife said to him, "Do you still hold fast to your integrity? Curse God and die." But he said to her, "You speak as one of the foolish women speaks. Shall we indeed accept good from God And shall we not accept adversity? In all that this Job did not sin with his lips. Now when Job's 3 friends heard of all this adversity that had come upon him, each one came from his own place. Eliphaz the Temanite, Bildad the Shuhite, and Zophar the Nahamathite. For they had made an appointment together to come and mourn with him and to comfort him. And when they raised their eyes from afar and did not recognize him, they lifted their voices and wept. Each one tore his robe and sprinkled dust on his head towards heaven. So they sat down with him on the ground 7 days and 7 nights, and no one spoke a word to him, for they saw his grief was very great. Chapter 3. After this Job opened his mouth and cursed the day of his birth, and Job spoke and said, May the day perish on which I was born, and the night in which it was said, a male child is conceived. May that day be darkness. May God above not seek it, nor the light shine upon it. May darkness and the shadow of death claim it. May a cloud settle on it. May the blackness of the day terrify it. As for that night, may darkness seize it. May it not rejoice among the days of the years. May it not come into the number of the months. Oh, may that night be barren. May no joyful shout come into it. May those curse it who curse the day, those who are ready to arouse Leviathan. May the stars of the morning be dark. May it look for light but have none, and not see the dawning of the day, because it did not shut up the doors of my mother's womb, nor hide sorrow from my eyes. Why did I not die at birth? Why did I not perish when I came from the womb? Why did the knee receive me? Or why did the breast that I should nurse? For now I would have lain still and been quiet. I would have been asleep, then I would have been at rest, with kings and counselors of the earth, who build ruins for themselves, or with princes who have gold, who fill their houses with silver. Or why was I not hidden like a stillborn child, like infants who never saw light? There the wicked cease from troubling, and there the weary are at rest. There the prisoners rest together. They do not hear the voice of the oppressor. The small and the great are there, and the servant is free from his master. Why is light given to him who is in misery, and life to the bitter of soul, who long for death, but it does not come, and search for it more than hidden treasures, who rejoice exceedingly, and are glad when they can find the grave? Why is light given to a man whose way is hidden, and whom God has hedged in? For my signs come before I eat, and my groanings pour out like water. For the thing I greatly feared has come upon me, and what I dreaded has happened to me. I am not at ease, nor am I quiet. I have no rest, for trouble comes. Yeah, I believe it is the oldest book. I don't know completely, but I believe it is. It says the date of the events in Job is unknown. Evidence for a patriarchal setting includes Job's old age, the assessment of his wealth according to livestock and servants. Proposed dates for the writing of Job vary from patriarchal to postelic. I don't know what that words mean. Exilic times, depending on the author assumed. Oh, I think Job. I don't know if it's the book of Job that was written, but I think Job himself was a writer. I think that's what it was. I don't know if it was. If it was. I had to look that up. I can't remember. There was a study. It's been a while since I've studied Job. I think Job in the time frame is earlier on. As far as the writing, I don't know. I can't remember. I'll have to look that up. Sorry, guys. Chapter 4. Then Eliphaz the Temanite answered and said, If one attempts a word with you, will you become weary? But who can withhold himself from speaking? Surely you have instructed many, and you have strengthened weak hands. Your words have upheld him who was stumbling, and you have strengthened the feeble knees. But now it comes upon you, and you are weary. It touches you, and you are troubled. Is not your reverence your confidence, and the integrity of your ways your hope? Remember now, who ever perished being innocent, or who or where were the upright ever cut off? Even as I have seen those who plow iniquity and sow trouble reap the same. But the blast of God they perish, and by the breath of his anger they are consumed. The roaring of the lion, the voice of the fierce lion, and the teeth of young lions are broken. The old lion perished for lack of prey, and the cubs of the lioness are scattered. Now a word was secretly brought to me, and my ear received a whisper of it. I am disquieting thoughts from the visions of the night. When sleep falls on men, fear comes upon me and trembling, which made all my bones shake. Then a spirit passed before my face. The hair on my body stood up. It stood still, but I could not discern its appearance. A form was before my eyes. There was a silence. Then I heard a voice saying, Can a mortal be more righteous than God? Can a man be more pure than his Maker? If he puts no trust in his servants, if he charges his angels with error, how much more those who dwell in houses of clay, whose foundations is in the dust, who are crushing before a moth. They are broken in pieces from morning till evening. They perish forever, and with no one regarding. Does not their own excellence go away? They die even without wisdom. Chapter 5. Call out now. Is there anyone who will answer you? And to which of the holy ones will you turn? For wrath kills a foolish man, and envy slays a simple one. I have seen the foolish taking root, but suddenly I cursed his dwelling place. His sons are far from safety. They are crushed in the gate, and there is no deliverer. Because the hungry eat up his harvest, taking it even from the thorns, and a snare snatches their substance. For affliction does not come from the dust, nor does trouble spring from the ground. Yet man is born to trouble, as sparks fly upward. But as for me, I will seek God, and to God I will commit my cause, who does great things and unsearchable marvelous things without number. He gives rain on the earth, and sends water on the fields. He sets on high those who are lowly, and those who mourn are lifted to safety. He frustrates the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot carry out their plans. He catches the wise in their own craftiness, and the counsel of the cunning comes quickly upon them, that they meet with darkness in the daytime, and grope at noontime as in the night. But he saves the needy from the sword, from the mouth of the mighty, and from their hand. So the poor have hope, and injustice shuts her mouth. Behold, happy is the man whom God corrects. Therefore do not despise the chastening of the Almighty, for he bruises, but he binds up. He wounds, but his hands make whole. He shall deliver you in 6 troubles, yet, yes, in 7 no evil shall touch you. In famine he shall redeem you from death, and in war from the power of the sword. You shall be hidden from the scourge of the tongue, and you shall not be afraid of destruction when it comes. You shall laugh at destruction and famine, and you shall not be afraid of the beasts of the earth. For you shall have a covenant with the stones of the field, and the beasts of the field shall be at peace with you. You shall know that your tent is in peace. You shall visit your dwelling and find nothing amiss. You shall also know that your descendants shall be many, and your offspring like the grass of the earth. You shall come to the grave at a full age, as a sheaf of grain ripens in its seasons. Behold, this we have searched out. It is true. Hear it and know for yourself. Chapter 6. Then Job answered and said, Oh, that my grief were fully weighed, and my calamity lay with it on the scales. For then it would be heavier than the sand of the sea. Therefore my words have been rash, for the arrows of the Almighty are within me. My spirit drinks in their poison. The terror of God are array the terrors of God are arrayed against me. Does the wild donkey bray when it has grass, or does the ox low over its fodder? Can flavorous food be eaten without salt? Or is there any taste in the white of an egg? My soul refuses to touch them. They are as loathsome food to me. Oh, that I might have my requests, that God would grant me the thing that I long for, that it would please God to crush me, that he would loose his hand and cut me off. Then I will still have comfort, though in anguish would exult. He would not spare, for I have not concealed the words of the Holy One. What strength do I have that I should hope? And what is my end that I should prolong my life? Is my strength in the strength of stones? Is my strength the strength of stones? Or is my flesh bronze? Is my help not within me? And is success striven from me? To him who is afflicted, kindness should be shown by his friend, even though he forsakes the fear of the Almighty. My brother has dealt deceitfully like a brook, like the streams of the brook that pass away, which are dark because of the ice, and into which the snow vanishes. When it is warm, they cease to flow. When it is hot, they vanish from their place. The path of their way turn aside. They go nowhere and perish. The caravans of Tema look. The travelers of Sheba hope for them. They are disappointed because they were confident. They come there and are confused. For now you are nothing. You see terror and are afraid. Did I ever say, bring something to me? Or offer a bribe for me from your wealth? Or deliver me from my enemy's hand? Or redeem me from the hand of oppressors? Teach me, and I will hold my tongue. Cause me to understand where I have erred. How forceful are your right words. But what does your arguing prove? Do you intend to rebuke my words, and the speeches of a desperate one, which are as wind? Yes, you overwhelm the fatherless, and you undermine your friend. Now therefore be pleased to look at me, for I will never lie to your face. Yield now, let there be no injustice. Yes, concede my righteousness still stands. Is there injustice on my tongue? Cannot my taste discern the unsavory? Chapter 7. Is there not a time of hard service for man on earth? Are not his days also like the days of a hired man? Like a servant who earnestly desires the shade, and like a hired man who eagerly looks for his wages. So I have been allotted months of futility, and wearisome nights that have been appointed to me. When I lie down, I say, when shall I arise, and the night be ended? For I have had my fill of tossing till dawn. My flesh is caked with worms and dust. My skin is cracked and breaks out afresh. My days are swifter than a weaver's shuttle, and are spent without hope. Oh, remember that my life is a breath. My eye will never again see good. The eye of him who sees me will see me no more. While your eyes are upon me, I shall no longer be. As the cloud disappears and vanishes away, so he who goes up to the grave does not come up. He shall never return to his house, nor shall his place know him any more. Therefore I will not restrain my mouth. I will speak in the anguish of my spirit. I will complain in the bitterness of my soul. Am I a sea or a sea serpent that you set a guard over me? When I said my bed will comfort me, my couch will ease my complaint, then you scare me with dreams and terrify me with visions, so that my soul chooses strangling and death rather than my body. I loathe my life. I would not live forever. Let me alone, for my days are but a breath. What is man that you should exalt him, that you should set your heart on him, that you should visit him every morning and test him every moment? How long? Will you not look away from me and let me alone till I swallow my saliva? Have I sinned? What have I done to you, O watcher of men? Why have you set me as your target, so that I am a burden to myself? Why then do you not pardon my transgression and take away my iniquity? For now I will lie down in the dust, and you will seek me diligently, but I will no longer be. Oh, this is deep. I started a little later. That's why I think it feels longer. I was talking. That's the end of the reading. Which is funny because they would have put another book of Nehemiah in there. I think because I was talking a little bit more. But yeah, and then I started late. So my time right now says an hour and 15 minutes. So it's about the same time. I just started later, and I was talking a lot. That is such a great spot to stop, though. It's just, there's so much anguish in his writing. Not that I want to read about anguish, but it's so like you could feel it. You just hear his words so powerfully. So I don't have a timer, but TikTok will like tell me how long I've been on. It gives me my like a performance of what I'm doing. Oh, yeah, that's intense. I always forget about Job and just all the stuff that he goes through. It's such a it's such an intense thing. I think it's a great story though, because it really shows you suffering, how to suffer, I would say. I would say that it talks a lot about how to suffer, because he did not sin in his suffering. And he just continued. He worshipped. In his suffering and pain, he worshipped. I think it's hard to do. I can't imagine. I can't imagine going through all that at once. And it was just right after another. And yeah, he kept the faith, which is not easy. Sometimes we can blame God for our troubles, and sometimes we can blame other people. But he's in control, and he knows why all that stuff is happening. But it's just, I don't know. I just was reading that, and I just felt like I was going much slower just reading it and just kind of listening to the words and what he's actually crying out for. And because I don't think he's sinning in those things. He just doesn't understand. He just wants to know. Without the story of Job, many wouldn't consider doing what Job did. Yeah. And I think it's just such a testimony. And even just, not even just a testimony for us, but like for angels. I mean, imagine being, in God's presence and seeing this new creation that is being faithful, watching Job be faithful, like a reason had Job. Yeah, because I mean, like a lot of people will like question God, and it's because God is not like them, and we're thankful God is not like us. Like I can't. If I were God, like life would be so different. If you were God, life would be so different. Like we would handle things in so many terrible ways. I mean, look at what we do now, and God just allows us to make those mistakes, you know? It's just, it's so intense. Like, it's pretty intense. It's a heavy book, but I think when you're going through trials, it's a really good book to go through because it makes you feel like you're not alone. Same with like the Psalms, because sometimes we can feel like we're alone in our grief. We can feel like we're alone in our pain, and sometimes we don't want to talk about it. But reading the Psalms and reading Job, I feel like you're like, oh, he gets it. Like, yeah, he gets it, but he's still faithful and he still trusts God. We wouldn't be breathing this long. Yeah. No. We'd be puppets. I think, if we're in control, we'd be like the gods that other people create. I saw this one, I don't promote but I feel like it was an accurate depiction of what the world thinks God is. And the gods, or whatever they want to create. I don't like this movie, and I'm not saying like go watch it. I would say go watch this clip. There was a clip in the beginning of the movie where this guy goes to one of the, I don't know if he's like a sun god, and he's like, we prayed for you and we fasted and we did this, and he just doesn't care. Like, this god doesn't care. He's like, okay, I wasn't gonna help you, and it was just an accurate depiction. It's the beginning of I don't know, did I say the movie? Thor, Love and Thunder. Terrible movie. But it did have it was a terrible movie. But it was an accurate depiction of who they think God is, who the world thinks God is. And, but yeah, if you can look up the scene with, I think, the man and God, it's not Thor, it's another guy. I don't know his name. But it was an accurate depiction of what a worldly God would look like. And our God is so much bigger than that and compassionate, and he's just sacrificial. Am I going to see Jesus Revival? Oh, what's Jesus Revival? There's a conspiracy in every... Well, yeah. Jesus Revolution? Jesus Revolution, is that what it's called? Is that what you're talking about? The Jesus Revolution. I've read books on Pastor Chuck Smith and for Calvary, like the Calvary Chapel and Greg Laurie, and that one. I think I am gonna see it. I don't know when. It's opening. This is opening day, right? Are we opening day today? Maybe I will. Maybe I'll go tonight. I do think there's some sort of errors in it, from what I heard. But this is a perspective from Greg Laurie. But yeah, I think it's going to be a very, I think their ages are off in the movie, but, I think I will watch it. I think it will spark a lot of, questions, and I think there's a lot of emotion in it. So I think I will. I don't know when though. I think it's a good ministry and a good, it's basically what yeah. I think the way they depicted, Chuck Smith is a little different than what I remember from what I've read. I've read a book called a book about his wife. She wrote and she talked about the hippie movement and the Jesus movement. And so that wasn't the image that I got, or his testimony, yeah. Um, Hi, Marvin. Starving Marvin the Martian. Yeah, so I think I will watch it though. I think it's going to be a very emotional movie. I really like Calvary Chapel. I think they teach the word. I don't think all Calvary Chapels are the same right now because I know there are some that you always have to test the teachers. You always have to read the notes, look up or take the notes and look up the verses. It's good to see you. Long time no see. I saw you on the other night. Last night. I saw you on last night, but um, I knocked out. I was like, I'm gonna say hi, and then I was just like, I got exhausted. I saw The Lion King last night, which it was a great surprise. I got tickets to The Lion King for my birthday, and there was a special guest last night, so that was great. Do you watch the Bible Prophet? Is that Cliff Notes? Yes, I actually have that right here. I have this thing you could print out. It's free. But you could print out these things, and I colored one of them. I do that all the time. I know. I'm like, I'm gonna say hi, and then I was so excited. You print them out like this, and then you can watch the movies. But they also have like this study, which I haven't done yet, and it's the Bible Project study. Pretty good. But the videos are great. He's trying to help today's youth. Yeah, I think it would be great. I think it's going to be a great movie to really promote. I really hope it promotes the gospel message. I hope it's not just like, oh, Calvary Chapel or this movement. Like, I really hope it promotes Jesus. My pastor went to school with them people. Oh, who's your pastor? Nice, I love. Yeah, my pastor did too. He was he actually got, my pastor is actually on the board of Calvary Chapel. So, it's kind of, I go to a big church right now. It's like a huge church. But he shared his opinion on it, and I thought it was pretty good. I think the big takeaway is it's Greg Laurie's perspective. But he does have a passion for the lost, and I really hope that it's a good movie. I'm really excited for the character that plays, or the actor that plays the guy from The Chosen. He's a great actor. I enjoyed The Chosen. Yeah, I do too. I know if I ever want to get like an overview, I will watch a Bible Project video video movie. I don't know what you call YouTube video. Matt Roberts of the Genesis Project. Oh, is that a different one? Hi, Seven Holy Thunders. Yeah, I have not, guys. I haven't finished The Chosen. I think I'm on number 5. I wait till like all my like kids are here. Okay. Matt Roberts of. Okay, that's your pastor. Oh, okay. That's cool. I just love Calvary Chapel. I think it was a great, the Jesus movement was a great movement, but even just I think even just the birth of Calvary Chapel, it's just so simple. Like the teaching is just so simple and straightforward, and you go through books of the Bible. It's not this like you're reading through the word, and it's God's whole word, and it's just truth. And I grew up in Calvary Chapel. I did go to a couple churches that I think I went to one church that wasn't Calvary Chapel, but they did kind of follow a lot of the same things that Calvary Chapel did. They just were a smaller church, so they didn't become a Calvary Chapel. At least at that time. I don't know if they are now. Oh, thank you so much. That's so nice of you. Thank you for the rose. That's sweet of you. Yeah, I'm excited. Have you seen the movie? I think I'm not thinking about it. I'm thinking I'm going to watch it tonight. Oh my goodness, guys. My battery is going to die. I'm at like 12%. Blessings for abundance. Thank you. That's kind of you. I will see you guys. Okay, so Monday, guys, I don't think I'm going to be on. I have a like a fitness testing for my kids. But it might rain, so I don't know if they're going to do something different. They have like a state fitness testing. So if I don't come on Monday, that's why. I'll try to do a video on my story if I am not going to come on. If not, I'll be on Tuesday. Please go listen to my parody about Jesus to Jesus. Oh, okay. That sounds fun. I just followed you. Are you not following me? Or maybe I just, maybe I followed back. I don't know what I did. All right, guys, before my live cuts off, I'm at 10% now. I will see you guys soon. If I don't see you on Monday, I will hopefully see you guys on Tuesday around the same time. I'll be on at 9. Good to see you, Marvin. I hope you have a good day. Thank you so much for joining. I always appreciate you joining. I'm also putting my my lives on YouTube, so if you want to see them, it's the same name. I started, I think I have 6 videos of reading through the Bible in 90 days. It's uncut, so it's basically everything we talk about. So if you guys want to see that, and then I'm doing another one on Instagram. Same name. I have all the same names. I think I'm in Leviticus right now for Instagram, and those ones save on my page. So I have Genesis, Exodus, and a little bit of Leviticus on my Instagram. So if you want to see those, which is nice, it's nice to, if you don't have the time to go into a live and you just want to hear the word. I don't talk as much on the Instagram lives. It's pretty much just me really reading, and I don't do a lot of interacting with them. There's maybe 1 or 2 that I do, but it's pretty much once you get past the first 2, because I think my mic wasn't working, because I can't hear my mic on Instagram. So, but yeah, if you happen to be reading through Genesis or Exodus or Leviticus, they're up there. And then I think I have on YouTube, I have 5 videos up. So I have all Genesis and a little bit of Exodus. Oh, actually I have more videos on my, they're going to come fast though, because I'm on day 36. So I've got a lot of videos. I'm just trying to put them up a little bit slowly because they like that on YouTube. I don't know. But I will see you guys soon. I hope you have an amazing weekend. Thank you so much for joining.